and it's not that popular in Zimbabwe. So I just said,
Okay.
let me just chip in. This is a gap where I can just do my side
Yeah.
business. So all I just know, I'm not sure which oils to use.
Okay.
It is if I want my soap to be conditioning, which
Mm.
oil should I use? If I want my soap to be cleansing, which oil should I use? Because apparently I bought hemp seed oil and I don't even know how to use it.
Okay.
So I want to know the properties of oils. What what factors do they contribute
Yeah,
to
yeah,
soap?
yeah. Yeah.
But otherwise, who knew? I only
Okay.
started my first soap that I made for personal use was in November,
Okay.
and then just traced too fast. I
Oh.
don't even know.
Ah, we're gonna solve that for you.
I just want to learn as much as I can.
Okay, cool. So, I let me, sorry, let me share my screen. Mm, Yes. Sorry, I just share it because I do have some slides. Okay. And I'll send that on afterwards. So if I look away, it's just because the slides are there. Yeah, and if anything happens during the slideshow, just like get my attention, then I'll fix it. Sometimes it doesn't move on or whatever.
So
So
no problem.
the reason is the slides moving.
Yes, yes, it's
Cool.
moving.
Okay, cool. The reason actually why I decided to do this is 2 years ago. No, actually, well, it might be a little bit more than 2 years ago. I sort of stumbled upon soap making. Now, I think for me, the soap making, I was fortunate enough because what happened is at that time, it was the beginning of 2021. I didn't have money to go out and buy all of the ingredients immediately. So I've spent about 2 months, maybe 3 months, just researching and reading up, like exhausting all the resources that I could find, which I only realized like at the end of last year, towards the end of last year, how beneficial that was. And I'll maybe get a little bit later to that story as well. But anyway, so and then I get a lot of requests from people here in South Africa. And I also had a lady from Lesotho, people that come into South Africa and they see me at markets asking me and contacting me for soap classes. But I don't have space. And then I just realized now while I'm waiting for space, let me just start with something online. So that's really why I love to teach and love to. I get so annoyed with the answers sometimes that they give to people in soap groups in the Facebook.
Huh?
I'm like, can you just explain to the person why and why not? Don't just tell them they're doing something wrong. So that sort of sparked the reason why I wanted to do this. And I guess the other thing is in my other job, I am a mental performance coach, and I was so annoyed when they would tell people and women, no, you cannot sell your soap. You must be making soap for 5 years, and your soap is not ready to be. I'm like, if somebody wants, and you would understand, like especially here locally. In Zimbabwe and South Africa, if we want to start a business, we don't have time to sit around for 5 years researching and wondering what to do. I mean, we don't have that luxury. Um, so yeah, so that's really one of the reasons, well, probably the biggest reason why I wanted to do this. And I thought today, because I don't know how you started with if you started like, because many people start with a recipe, right? They get a recipe out of a book and then they make soap from that recipe. But very little people know how to like formulate their own recipe. I don't know if you have had an opportunity to like figure out and formulate this or not yet.
Yeah, you've been using soap calculator. I researched on YouTube how to use that.
Okay.
So a bit of knowledge on how to make a recipe.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. Let's just wait for Leonie. Hi, Leonie. You are on mute if you are speaking. Hi.
You?
Hello.
Hi. Okay, so we have Andy. I assume, Leonie, you are in South Africa from your name and surname.
In Botswana.
Okay. Oh, wow. So we have and Andy from Zimbabwe.
Hi.
Okay. Hi.
Okay. So so Leonie, just quickly, where are you with soap making? Have you made soap yet before or not yet at all?
Yes, I did. But it's very much in the beginning. So yes.
Okay, cool. And then the one question I just explained to sort of Anthea where how I got to starting this and why. But and for your soap making, are you making soap from a recipe or do you know how to like formulate a recipe by yourself?
Yeah, between my husband and I, we're using soap calc. So
Okay,
yeah.
cool. Okay, cool. I just wanted to sort of make sure what is foreign language and what if I speak about something. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I just told Anthea I'm recording this so that I can send you the information afterwards and the link to the recording afterwards as well.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, so I got a lot of questions. Sorry, just to quickly backtrack. I got a lot of questions from people for soap making classes. I don't have space and things like that. So I sort of now let me just dive in and do it online. I do a lot of my other work online, and I thought, let's just go ahead and do it online. We'll see how well it works, helping people online and teaching people online. So today I first want to talk about the soap the oils in itself. Hopefully there's something I hope that you are that you will learn today, and if not, hopefully there's something that I'm saying that will sort of spark you to go and read up on something else, even maybe. And then we probably won't be long, and then of course we can talk a little bit about if you have any questions or anything.
Okay.
When soap makers, and sorry, I'm just looking away, the slides are on the other screen. When soap makers start off with soap, and you guys all would have read this or heard about it or thought it, but we all want our soap to have certain properties, and these are the 6 most important or the most familiar properties that soapers are always looking for, and you will recognize this because this is also in soap calc at the bottom, and I'll go into soap calc at the end as well. So we are looking for lather. In other words, the moment it gets into contact with water, I almost want to say how much white of the soap is on your skin. Like, I don't want to say bubbles because that's something different, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Then we're looking for hardness. And I know, Anthea, you said like your soap is disappearing. That is what you are looking for, is a soap hard enough that it will don't dissipate in the water. I can maybe just say that from the research that I've done and from what I hear the other people are saying that have been making soap for 10 or 15 years is that if you use the soap in the shower, I don't know if you guys are selling your soaps yet, but if you use the soap in the shower, you want the soap to stay dry in between uses. So, and if you follow all of those guidelines, then you want the soap to be able to last for about 2 weeks. If you only wash your hands, we want it to last for about 4 weeks. So that's sort of how you can gauge whether you want to fix something or change something up. Cleansing, is how effectively it removes dirt. Now, also clean. Doesn't matter if it has a low cleansing value or a high cleansing value. It's just the cleansing is about how it feels on your skin. But sometimes people think if a soap has a low cleansing value, it doesn't clean you. It doesn't wash the dirt off, but also will clean. And then moisturizing, it's how the soft and hydrated feel on the skin once you have washed your hands or washed your body with it. And the stability, and which is the ability to not get rancid. That normally comes in with oils that have a very short shelf life. And then also, how does it smell? Now, you could, and sometimes they do include how long the fragrance stays in your soap, also as quote unquote stability. But it's just personal preference. Like if you use I use mostly essential oils. If you use essential oils, what can you do to anchor the fragrance so that it will last longer? If you use fragrance oils, obviously the scent will stay a little bit longer, but it's personal preference. Let's say after 6 or 7 or 8 months, if you don't smell anything, whether you still want to sell the soap or not. But yeah, that sort of fall under the category of stability. And then longevity, of course, how long does it last? So the idea with soap making is that we want to look for a combination of oils that gives us something of all of this. Now, the use of different oils with different fatty acid profiles in the cold process soap, and I haven't asked now whether you are making hot process or cold process. I make cold process. The training is from cold process angle. So yeah, don't know, Leonie, what type of soap are you guys making?
I'm making cold process.
Okay, cool.
I'm
okay,
also
cool.
making cold processed, so it's fine.
Okay, perfect. It just feels to me like the hot process is too much, so much effort. I have a lot of respect for those people because I think it is a lot of patience. Obviously then with the combination of the properties of soap, we choose what we want in the soap. Now, the fatty acid profile is what we want to look for in soap. It's the fatty acid profile of a particular oil that will determine all of these things, like how does it lather, whether it's hard, cleansing, moisturizing. So yes, it's a particular oil that does it, but it's actually the fatty acid profile in the oil that causes that. The oil is literally just a carrier for fatty acids. And that's why it is cool to understand that these oils fall, for example, into this category, because if you want to substitute something, so let's say you have a recipe and you want to substitute an oil. You want to look at it from a fatty acid perspective, not necessarily about, oh, everybody talks about shea butter and it's luxurious butter, but what is it going to do in your soap? So that's how the angle we always want to think about when it comes to oils and soap. I did say here that the perfect recipe is obviously a perfect quote unquote is a combination of all of the fatty acid profiles, your preference, as well as what the client wants in your area and the market that you serve. And I also did say that the perfect soap recipe is as unique as you are. I see a lot of people sometimes post in the Facebook groups like, oh, I need the perfect soap recipe. Please spam me with your perfect soap recipe. And the perfect soap recipe for me, for example, my business philosophy is I use as little as possible ingredients. I only make soap with 2 or 3 oils, just because that's what I want to do. And then I fill everything that I want. In addition, I will use like additives or something, add that on. Whereas other people like complicated recipes. They like 5, 10 oils, which is fine, but that's their perfect recipe. For me, my perfect recipe is anything between 2 or 3 oils that I use. the important thing for you is just to decide what matters for you. And obviously, there are people that don't like to use animal products, others don't want to use palm oil, but decide what matters most to you and then also your customers. This is the one thing that I've, in my soaping journey, I've learned that it doesn't really matter what I think and what I want. It's what the customer is looking for. And many times it's hard for us to wrap our heads around that, because most of us start off with soap making as an hobby. And then we get to a recipe that we like, and we sort of want to keep that recipe, but our customers doesn't like it for whatever reason. Then we need to be able to adjust to make something that they will really like, otherwise it won't sell. Okay, so I'm gonna run you through the 7 or 8 fatty acids that exist in oils, and that's important for us to know about for the soap making. And I'll send the slides out afterwards to you. You can send me, if you want to, an email address in the chat where I can email it to you. Otherwise, I'll just send it through Facebook Messenger to both of you.
Okay.
So lauric acid in a oil, the fatty acid profile, lauric acid is going to give you hardness. It's going to make the soap hard. And it's going to give you a strong cleaning effect. And these are the oils that people will sometimes say, but it feels stripping on my skin. That's when something has a very high oil or a high, strong cleaning property. It gives big fluffy lather, and it can set up quickly during the soap making process. In other words, saponification. Both of you would now sort of be familiar with saponification. It can set up quickly. Doesn't say it's going to do that, but it can. And examples of that is, and I've only added the oils that I think most people use, but it's bambasu oil, palm kernel oil, and coconut oil. I think we are all familiar with coconut oil. It is drying on the skin unless you obviously adjust the super fat for that. And I'll get to that a little bit later. And the usage guideline is up to 20% of your total oil. So that's the one about the lauric acid. The myristic acid gives you also a hard soap with a strong cleansing property. Gives you lots of lather, but it's actually, along with the lauric acid, it's going to give you a softer soap. So that's the soap that comes out hard in the mold, I almost want to say, but it doesn't last as long. It can also set up fast during the soap making process, and again, also include coconut oil, palm kernel oil. Oh, kernel is sort of spelled wrongly. Kernel oil and babasu oil. So again, those 3 oils contains the same 2 properties. And you want to make sure that when you put the oils together, that it's up to about 10% of, sorry, let me backtrack. Those oils are about 10% of your total oil. Now, it sort of sounds strange that the other properties say 20%, but if they are both included in 2 different fatty acid profiles, you would know, okay, I want to say quote unquote maximum, just 20 up until 20%, but depending on where you are with your soap making journey, we know that you can use 100% coconut oil in soap as well. Then let me just let this person come in.
Excuse me.
Hi, Joanne. Oh, she's... Anyway, so let me continue. And then, so the next one is the palmitic acid. So that makes a hard, long-lasting soap. Gives you a stable and creamy lather, and can also set up fast during the soap making process. And then examples of that is palm, tallow, lard, other animal tallows. You get a lot of different animal tallows. Yeah, for us, I know here in Africa, tallow and lard is the most popular. But if you have access to anything else, test it out and see what it does. Cocoa butter, shea butter, and mango butter. And you can use that up to 25% of your total oil. Come on. The next one is stearic acid. Also makes a hard, long-lasting soap with low creamy lather. Can also set up fast during the spondification process and has a low cleansing property. So again, it doesn't mean it's not going to clean you as well. It just means it's not going to, it's going to be how it feels on the skin. It's not going to feel harsh and stripping on the skin. Examples of that is cocoa butter, basically the popular butters that people make soap with is cocoa, shea, and mango. And you can use that up to 15% of your total oil. Then we have ricinoleic acid. And the only oil with the majority of ricinoleic acid is 89% of ricinoleic acid in the oil is castor oil. That's why we never make a soap with 100% or even, I mean, that amount of any big amount of castor oil, because it's going to give you a soft, sticky soap if you only make soap with that. And a low creamy lather with a low cleansing property. And that's why also we only use it up to 10% of your total of oils in any soap recipe. You don't have to use it in a soap recipe. It helps with bubbles and it helps to with the lather, but again, you don't have to use it in, I don't use it in many of my soap recipes at all. But yeah, if you do use it, don't add more than 10%, especially if you're just starting off. Then oleic acid will give you a softer soap, with the exception of olive oil, actually. But I'll get to that when I get there with examples. And it gives you low lather and low cleansing. So for those of you, you can make 100, that has made 100% olive oil soap, will know that it gives you an extremely hard bar the longer it cures. But it doesn't lather great, and it has a low cleansing property on your skin. But it is an amazing soap, especially for babies and people with sensitive skin. And then the oil examples is olive oil, sweet almond oil. Of all of those oils, the only one you want to use in 100% in 100% capacity is the olive oil. Sweet almond soap, apricot kernel, and canola, avocado oil, rice bran oil, then high like sunflower and safflower oil. Just maybe quickly, for the, don't know if you know, but if you are working with, I know here where we are, I don't know in Botswana and Zimbabwe, how readily available do you have fragrance oils and where do you get them from? But I know it's been a huge struggle in South Africa to get proper fragrance oils for cold processed soap. And if you do have something, adding canola oil up to 15% in your soap batter can help to keep that batter fluid more longer, so that you have more working time with the fragrance oil. That obviously, if the fragrance oil wants to behave the way it does, there's no stopping it. But yeah, the canola oil helps a little bit with that. And then and canola actually also gives you a nice hard, well, all of these can give you a nice hard bar, but canola oil also. And then the usage guideline is 20% to 50% of your total oil, with the exception of olive oil. Then I think this is the last one, the linolenic acid, second last one, will give you a soft soap with a low silky lather, low cleansing again. But this is the one that has a reduced shelf life. I see I made a typing error. It's not hemp seed oil, it's hemp seed oil and flaxseed oil. So these oils are tricky because they have a low shelf life. And I've certainly run, especially with hemp seed oil, ran into the trouble of using hemp seed oil in a recipe. It didn't smell bad. It was still before the expiry date, or the best before date actually, but it curdled my batter. So obviously the hemp seed oil was not stable anymore. So that's the trouble sometimes that we can run into with these oils. So if you do buy, so keep in mind that if you do buy something with the shortest shelf life, and especially if you're starting off and you're not making a ton of soap in one batch, buy these oils in in a smaller quantity so that you have time to use it up within the best before use date. And the usage guideline is 0 to 2% of total oil. There are people that go up to 5% of hemp oil, but as you get more confident in using different oils, then you start to play around with the oils, up it a little bit, bring it down, see what change it makes for you. Now that's the last one. So what else? So what I wanted to include in here is just so around the topic of oils, what else should you be aware of? Joanne, welcome. Joanne, you are already making soap, right? Okay. So okay, cool. So it's not complete foreign info. So fat. Okay, superfat. Superfat. So when we talk about superfat, the superfat allows us to, during the saponification process, to leave what we call free-floating oils in the soap that doesn't saponify. So you would have heard or seen, or people would have spoken about the fact that for every lye molecule, it's not that straightforward, but I'm going to explain it like that. For every lye molecule, there must be an lye solution molecule. There must be an oil molecule so that it can bind together. The higher the superfat, the more free-floating oils will not bind to the lye solution molecules. So you will have more oil left in the soap. That's, for example, why you don't want for soap, that for household soap, you want a superfat of 0 or even minus, because you don't want oil left in your soap. Obviously, it can stain your clothes or something like that. And it's going to be hard to wash dishes with the soap that has some oil left in it. But that is something that we use to make a dry or a high cleansing soap, what we would call a dry soap, something that's dry on your skin, like a 100% coconut oil soap, to make that a soap that's more moisturizing and conditioning. Your water type will also play a role. Hard water can also inhibit lather. Soft water is obviously best for soap making. And then for the most part, we all use distilled water, but there's a lot of people that make soap with just their tap water or whatever water they have available. It's just about testing it and see how stable your soap is afterwards, but the standard is distilled water. Then there's also added sugars that you need to keep in mind, because any sugar will boost lather and bubbles. It's great. Oftentimes people would add honey in their soap. They would add milk in their soap. All of these things obviously contains extra sugar. People will add just plain white organic or cane sugar in their soap. Anything of that sort will boost lather and bubbles. So this is also something you need to keep in mind when you start to add additives, whatever the additive contain. And that's why we always say read the ingredients, because you might think that you have, let's say, a carrot puree. You bought a carrot puree that's just carrot puree, but if they added sugar in there for whatever bizarre reason, but if they did add sugar in there, or even carrot juice, if there's sugar in there, it's great. It's going to boost lather and bubbles, but it's going to speed up the acceleration and the saponification process. So these are small things. Not what I'm going to go into detail now, but just to keep that in mind. And added salts makes a harder bar, but then again, it also can inhibit lather. So you can add salt to your soap. It makes a great hard bar. I add sugar and salt to all my soaps. I can mold my soaps about 9 or 11 hours later. If you do add salt, also then, of course, just be mindful of the fact that don't make a soap 4 o'clock in the afternoon, because it's going to be too hard the next morning when you wake up to cut. Might be too hard to cut. So, what do you want to keep in mind when you just start off making soap? I know, Anthea and Leonie, I know, Joanne, all of you are already making some form of soap and have experience in it. Since this class is geared towards somebody that has never ever made soap, and even if you're 6 months in, depending on where you are with your soap journey, and if you are making it a business, I think this is also useful. What oils can you afford now? And start with that. If you don't have a big budget, you don't have a lot of money, don't go out and buy quote unquote exotic butters and oils, what we would call exotic, things that are more expensive than others. Just look at what you can afford and formulate your recipe out of that. The other thing you can also look at is what is locally produced. Now, I don't know actually in Zimbabwe and Botswana, but for us here in South Africa, what is locally produced, Joanne, and you're in the US, if I remember correctly. I think she is. I know.
On mute.
Say again.
She's on mute, I think.
Okay, yeah. I think she has some trouble with that. With her. Don't worry, you're on mute. Are you in the US? UK. Okay. So at least, and I know that at least here in South Africa, what's locally produced is not necessarily cheaper. It should be, but it's not necessarily cheaper. But if you can find in your local area somebody, for example, that produces sunflower oil in abundance, or you can get animal tallow, lard, animal butters, fats in abundance that's locally, that already cuts down on your cost, especially when you start off and you just like testing things out. For example, I started off with hemp seed oil because I had this thing about I'm going to just do hemp seed. I didn't like it at all. I cannot tell you why. I just didn't like the oil. And other people will rave about the oil, and that's great. So do not buy a bunch of stuff until you, or in big quantities, until you know you're going to walk a path with this type of oil. And then also ask yourself, do you want to have a simple oil recipe now versus a complex oil formulation? Or maybe this might change, but I started off actually with, it's not too complex. It was like 4 or 5 oils in the formulation, a complex oil formulation. And then I completely scaled it down to just like 2 or 3 oils. That's what I make soap with, and that's it. And it makes also, this is just a little bit from a business perspective, it makes it so much easier to keep track of your inventory if you don't have a ton of oils and you only have whatever it is that you're going to use, even if it's just 2 or 3. Okay, so most of you might have seen this. Very basic beginner soap recipe is like they talk about a 33 ratio. Obviously, we need an extra one, but it's 33% olive oil, 34, make up for the one, 33 palm oil. And I didn't add like then, because I don't want to give a recipe. I want, at the end of the day, you guys to be able to formulate your own recipes, but just, because the coconut, you would remember in the beginning, coconut will give you a hard bar, and palm oil will also give you a hard bar. So you would want to increase the super fat significantly to make up for that, so that it's just not so stripping on the skin. And then caustic soda, obviously, we all know that's what we need, and distilled water. All of you have made soap. If you were new and you have never ever made soap, I would have told people to soap at room temperature. Strangely enough, I don't own a thermometer at all. Maybe it was my experience with fragrance oils that sort of forced me not to even have an oil that's remotely warm or whatever, or soap with batter that's remotely warm. So I just soap at room temperature. It just makes it so much easier, and I don't have to worry about other things. Obviously, in winter, when the winters are cold, because we don't have the heat is not regulated in our homes, right? So then you like have to figure a time of the day out that you want to soak. But anyway, and then if you were new, I would have told you do not use any additives or fragrance or essential oils at this point as you start to dabble in soap making or test out soap. Another soap recipe. This is what the Old Faithful from Brambleberry. It's 32% of olive oil, coconut oil, and palm oil, and then extra 4% castor oil. And then again, caustic soda and distilled water. Again, I say soap at room temperature. If you're new, I know you have all been already making soap. And then again, I would have told new people that they shouldn't use any additives or fragrance oils for now. And the reason why I say that is that every single thing that you add into your soap is going to change the recipe and how the oils will behave. And I see that a lot where people would say, but I've made this recipe a ton of times before. Why does it do it now? But there's so many factors. It can be just the temperature that you didn't measure for this batch. Because it was cold to the touch, cold enough, but there was a temperature difference. It could be the ambient temperature around us plays a huge role. The humidity plays a huge role. So even here, in our summer, I have to I work with a very steep water discount to be able to have a soap that's not sweating. And then in the winter, I can bring that down a little bit again if I want to. But yeah, so the ambient temperature also plays a role in terms of how your recipe is going to behave. Okay. So let's go into soap calc. Again, I know all of you have some sort of experience with soap calc. Let me know, give me a thumbs up if you see soap calc. Okay. So if you get to soap calc, this is the homepage that you're going to see. You can click on recipe calculator. So I work in grams. I think most soapers sort of are moving towards grams. It makes it easier. But we know for the type of lye, caustic soda is the first one that we want to leave it there. So my aim now is not to, I'm not going to like teach you how to use soap calc. There will be something different for that. I just want to run through or put a recipe in so that we can look at the fatty acid profile. So grams, let's say it's 500 grams. You can use water as oil percentage. In other words, how much water as a percentage of total oil do you want to use in your soap? You can use a lye concentration or water to lye ratio. But normally the one that people start off with is anything between 33 and 35%. People start off with a super fat of 5%, which is fine. And the fragrance, it will always automatically populate the fragrance, but you can just ignore that if you're not doing fragrance. So let's say, let's use that one that I add. Olive oil, coconut oil, and palm oil. 33. Okay. So this is what I wanted to get to, this piece here at the bottom. So we have gone through that fatty acid profile, and this is where it will spit it out for you and why you want to have a look at that. Because what is neat about soap calc is they have already put the information in the back end and it will automatically calculate these ranges for you and what your recipe looks like based on the fatty acid profile of the oils that you've put in. So they've already done the heavy lifting, but you want to understand what you want to look at and why you want to look at these things. There was something I wanted to say now, but it'll come back to me. So, well, this is what I wanted to say. I've seen a lot of people asking, there are different soap calculators, right? And when they put in the same recipe, they get different values. So just remember that a value, for the most part in science, anything science related, physiology related, biochemically related, for the most part is going to be a range. So they might say that a oil has a steric value of between this and this. And then when people set up the soap calculator, they pick either maybe what we call the mean, whatever is in the middle, or they pick something to the side, left. So that's why soap calculators can differ. It's not a big thing. Just because a value will always be set out, or the saponification value is set out in ranges, and fatty acid profiles might be set out in ranges. And that's where they grab the information from. So don't worry if it differs. You'll still be fine if you use a soap calculator, a well-known soap calculator. So for the hardness, so first off, if you've never made soap, most of you have, I don't know if Lesebo, I've made soap before, but when you start off, you want to make sure that your recipe falls within this range. Yeah, I'm sharing. Falls within this range. It doesn't matter, does it fall on the value, like for example, 22 cleansing, it just means it's on the higher end. And conditioning, as long as it is a little bit on the lower end, 22 somewhere in the middle, that doesn't matter. As long as your recipe falls within the range, then you will be good. Then your fatty acid profile is fine. As you start to gain experience, become confident, you play around with different oils, and then you will be able to see how these values differ and what effect it's going to have on your recipe. So if you, for example, and I want to come back to the cleansing, we know that, for example, coconut oil has a very high cleansing factor. So if we see something like this, we want to increase the super fat. It's not going to change anything here, because remember now the fatty acid profile is dependent on the type of oil you use. If you change the water, change the superfat, it's not going to change any of these values. So many times people change the superfat, they don't understand why does these values not change, but this is purely dependent on the list of oils that you have in here. You don't have to worry about things like ENS and iodine. There's a lot of, for the commercial soap makers and the people that make tons of soap and add other stuff, these are the things that they might look into, and there are values that they need to comply with. But as a soap maker or a hobbyist, and not natural, because not all of our stuff is natural, not everybody uses only natural ingredients, but homemade soap businesses, you don't have to worry about these two values. Let me see if there was something else I wanted to say. I just quickly want to see if there was anything else. No, was that, and that is it for today. So I'm going to open it up if there are any questions. Hang on, there's some. Okay, so for those of you who joined late, If you want to send me your email address, I'll send the slides to you. Otherwise, I'll just send it through Facebook Messenger to you. So just be on the lookout for that. What is the impact of ambient temperature saponification and hardening of the bars? Low struggle when yes, because so what you can do is exactly the same thing that I want to say that we have here, but it's like we are sort of in the same place, sort of. That's why you want to soak with a higher water discount. In other words, you want to lower the amount of water that you use to mix your lye with. I go up to 38%. In other words, 38% of the lye solution is lye and the rest is water. So that there's not a lot of water left in the soap that needs to evaporate. It will, if the water disc, or if there's a lot of water in the soap, it will make a softer bar. So I'll get to the oils now. It can cause the bar at the time that you unmold it, but it's going to take a long time to cure and for that water to evaporate, especially if the area where you are is humid. But you can put a fan on the soap, and you can put a dehumidifier in the room if that might help. But it's just a schlep. It's annoying that soaps sweat. I have found that just upping the water discount made a huge difference, and I didn't get soaps that sweat any longer actually. And I started off with 33 or 35%, and just that 3% that I went up made a huge difference. And the oils. So, and then again on the other side, so if you do know that's what you struggle with the like a softer soap, you do want to use, you can use harder oils or oils that make a harder soap. But now just remember, if you start to use oils that make a harder soap, the soap might not last long. So there's that offset. So you need to decide. You can up your water, well, actually lower, upping your water discount, use less water. See if that works. You can let the soap cure for longer if it's 2 or 3 months, or you can use a harder oil knowing that the soap might not last as long. If that's obviously a factor, you cannot do that. But then also, if you make a soap with oils that give you harder soap, you have to keep in mind that you might need to unmold the soap sooner. Joanne. Oh, Joanne is from Cape Town. Joanne, why? Because I know your name sounds familiar. So I thought you were in one of the soap groups. But you are, obviously. That's why it's your name. Lesibu, where are you from? You are on mute. While we wait for. Hi, Lesibu.
Hi, Katrina. I'm from the Lesotho. Remember we met at the mall?
Yes. Hi, Lesibu. Lesibu is one of my clients that met me at the mall. She was actually the one that sparked this less class, because I told she wanted soap making classes, and I told her I don't have space, and I still don't have space, Lesibu. So that's sort of why I decided to start it this way, so that we can at least get people started.
Okay.
Other questions that you have? Does that answer your question? Well, I know you probably want to go through the information again, but does that answer your question on the hemp seed oil that you have? You know now what to do with it.
Yes, and I think I'll take it down, turn it down, and just maybe use it at 5%, 8%. But thank you, it was clear. Now I know the. Yes.
You're welcome. Somebody else had a question.
So I want to ask, maybe let's say for oily skin, we need high cleansing value oils like coconut oil, is it?
Yeah, so yeah. The other way you can see it is that for a oilier skin, you want your super fat to be lower. So think about it. I want you to think about it in terms of super fat and not in terms of the type of oil. Because just using the oil, if you make a body butter just using oils, then you can think about it that way. Because you're going to put there's nothing else that's going to impact, let's say, whatever you mix together. But now, because the soap is going through a saponification process, you have a super fat that you need to deal with, water discount you have. So that changes the structure, I almost want to say, of the soap or the property of the soap. So for soap making, think about in terms of if the super fat is lower, you want to lower the super fat for oily skin or play around and then increase the super fat for a dry skin. So you go, so what I see people do out there and what I also use is for I actually don't, here's the thing, I don't think about it in terms of dry and oily skin. I think in terms of using soap on the face and soap on the body. So soap on the face, I'll make a super fat of 8%. And then you can bring it down to 5% for anything else. If you want to, you don't have to. But my suggestion would be to play around with additives as opposed for oily skin, dry skin, and things like that, as opposed to, you can use oils. But yeah, play around with the additives. I don't know if that answers your question, but you're right in terms of the light cleansing. It just fits you. If you make a soap for oily skin, let's say you make 100% coconut oil soap and you play around with the super fat, or you have a soap with a high coconut oil value in there, it is going to be quote unquote stripping on the skin, and it might be what you need for an oily skin. But now it's almost like, now where do you draw the line? Whose skin is more oilier than the other? You can sort of get what I'm saying. So you might have two people with oily skin, but for the one it's too harsh, and for the other one it's perfect. So that can happen. Just keep that in mind. So if you make a soap for an oily skin based on the oils that you use, it's not going to necessarily feel great or work for everybody that feel that they have an oily skin. Any other questions? I think Anthea got stuck. Leonie Lesebo, anything else from you?
There's nothing really for now. I think because I logged in late, so I'm kind of everywhere. So,
Okay.
I think I get it.
Sorry, Lesebo, go ahead.
Yeah, I experienced something during the week where I tried. It's more like my soap, my fat, and my oils and my water didn't mix. I had frozen the milk and added lye, but the temperature of the lye did not increase. It had stayed on the low, and I didn't know what was happening.
Okay. So you made the lye solution with the milk and the lye?
Yes, I added the milk to I added the lye to the milk.
Okay, always. Yeah, always add the fluid, the lye solution to the fluid. So you must.
That's what I.
Oh, okay, perfect. So, and then was milk frozen or not? Was it just cold?
No, it was frozen. It was hard frozen.
Okay, all right. So, you general gonna give a quick background. So, whenever you want to replace, you can replace your water with any liquid, right? Anything under the sun. You can go. Well, I'm not saying everything work, but you can just go wild if you want to. So if we, like I mentioned in the beginning, milk has natural sugars in. Anything that has sugar, you want to freeze. And also things like coffee, anything you really want to freeze. And then like you add the lye to the liquid, to the ice blocks, and then you stir it slowly. Because if we do it too quickly, it can actually scorch the milk. So in order, when milk turns like a yellowy color, many times, yeah. It's not the end of the world, but it has, now it will, it will fade in the soap, but it's lye solution to look like a thick, like a buttermilk at the end of it. So, so if it, you can heat up the lye solution a little bit, or put it in a bowl. If you have milk, put it in a bowl with hot water to heat it up a little again.
Okay.
If it doesn't dissolve completely, you can, because sometimes what happens, it gets stuck at the bottom because it's cold. It makes like a little layer. You can just crush that, but now be careful that it doesn't stuck in your eyes or anywhere. But you can just crush that, put it in a hot water, and then you just have to stir. Keep on stirring. It will eventually dissolve.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
that's a slip if it happens, but yeah, it's fixable. You just have to spend a little bit of time mixing it the whole time.
Okay.
The other way, I don't know if you know, the other way you can also add milk is what we call the milk in oil method. Is actually where you take a portion, you mix your lye solution with water, and you make sure that the lye that you have, let's say the lye is 100 grams, the water must at minimum also be 100 grams, and whatever is, you can deduct that. Take the milk, add it in the oils, you can mix it, then you add the lye solution to the oils and the water. That's also one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. That's something that's new to me.
Yeah, you can do that.
Okay.
Other questions? Okay. So I'm going to love if you there. I will send, for those of you, I have the emails that I'll send the presentation, and for the others, let me, sorry, just get your names yet if I forget it. Yoni, I have the Cebu, I have you, your WhatsApp, and your email, I think. And I'll just send that, the presentation, and then as soon as the recording has been rendered, I'll send a link to the recording as well. And then I'll let you know the next class, what I will do is to go through Soap Calc and go through everything in Soap Calc so that you sort of know if you change this, what's the impact, all of that. That shouldn't take too long. And then I'll see, we can maybe start to talk a little bit about additives and things like that. But if you have specific questions or you struggle with something specifically, like, I mean, Lesibu's question around the lye and the milk, that's something that let me know, and then I can work that in as well. All right. Is soaping.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, ciao.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Enjoy
You're
your evening.
welcome. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.